The room shimmered with gold and crystal, laughter spilling like champagne bubbles. I could feel the silk of my gown brushing against my legs as I walked through the crowd, smiling, poised, every inch the woman people expected me to be tonight. The New York Women in Leadership Gala, my company's biggest sponsorship event yet. Cameras flashed, names whispered, and for a moment, I almost forgot how hard it had been to get here. Almost. Then I saw them. Across the ballroom, near the grand staircase, stood my mother and my sister. And beside them, the man I once thought I'd marry. Ethan. His hand rested lightly on my sister's back, the same way it used to on mine. For a heartbeat, my chest tightened. I felt it, the sting of a past I'd buried under years of silence. My mother's eyes widened the moment she recognized me. My sister froze, lips parting slightly, like she'd seen a ghost. And Ethan, he looked pale, almost shaken. I inhaled slowly, letting the faint scent of jasmine from my perfume steady me. They don't know who you are now, I reminded myself. To them, I was the girl who disappeared. But tonight, I wasn't someone's heartbreak or someone's mistake. I was the woman they never believed I could become. And fate, or maybe karma, had just sent them into my spotlight. The night was about to get interesting. I still remember the first time I brought Ethan home. I was 22, fresh out of college, full of plans and wide-eyed dreams. He had that kind of smile that made you believe in forever, and when he looked at me, it felt like I was the only person in the world. My mom, however, saw something else entirely. She measured people not by kindness, but by usefulness. And Ethan, handsome, ambitious, from a respectable family, checked every box she'd ever dreamed of for her perfect daughter. Only, that daughter wasn't me. It was Vanessa, my younger sister. At first, it was subtle. Mom would invite Ethan over for dinner, even when I wasn't home. She'd make jokes about how Vanessa and he had so much in common, how some people just click effortlessly. I brushed it off, convincing myself I was overthinking it. But the jokes became suggestions, and the suggestions turned into poison. The night it all shattered, I can still feel like it happened yesterday. I had come home early from work, excited to surprise Ethan with tickets to his favorite band. Instead, I found them, my mom, my sister, and him, sitting together, the air heavy and wrong. Mom looked up at me with that tight, rehearsed smile. "Sweetheart," she said, "Ethan and Vanessa have been spending time together. We think it's right."
We.
My knees gave out. My throat burned, but no sound came out. Ethan couldn't even meet my eyes. And my sister, my own sister, sat there with guilt barely flickering across her perfect face. Mom's words kept echoing. "You're strong, Emma. You'll understand one day." But I didn't understand. Not then. That night, I packed my suitcase, my heart still bleeding through every folded shirt. Before I left, my grandmother stopped me at the door. She was the only one who truly saw me. She pressed a tiny gold locket into my palm. Inside was a single word etched in delicate script. "Enough. You'll know what it means when it's time," she whispered. As I walked away from that house, tears stinging my eyes, I promised myself something. I would never beg for love again. If the world wasn't going to give me a place, I'd build one. Leaving home felt like walking off a cliff with no parachute. I moved to Chicago with 2 suitcases, 1 credit card, and a heart too bruised to break again. The first few months were chaos. I worked as a waitress during the day and took online business classes at night, surviving on caffeine and sheer stubbornness. I remember standing at the bus stop in the freezing wind, whispering to myself, "You're enough. You'll make this work." It wasn't glamorous. I rented a studio apartment with a leaky ceiling and neighbors who fought through the walls. But for the first time, every choice was mine. Every mistake, mine too. My break came when I met Clara Monroe, a senior executive who dined often at the restaurant where I worked. She had that rare mix of power and empathy, the kind of woman who didn't need to prove she belonged in a man's world. One night, she asked me about my life, and somehow, I told her everything, not the sob story, but the version with quiet fire. She looked at me for a long moment and said, "You've got grit, Emma.
Come and turn for me."
Let's see what you can do. That internship changed everything. Clara mentored me relentlessly, teaching me strategy, finance, leadership, all the things no one at home thought I could handle. I stumbled 100 times, doubted myself 1,000 more. But every time I wanted to give up, I'd hold that little gold locket and remember my grandmother's word. Enough. 5 years later, I wasn't waiting tables anymore. I was signing clients. I launched my own marketing agency, Envera Consulting, built from scratch with long nights, instant noodles, and borrowed laptops. By year 3, we'd landed our first Fortune 500 contract. By year 5, we were one of Forbes' top 30 rising firms to watch. Through it all, I kept quiet. My family had no idea where I was or what I'd become. I posted the occasional vague photo, a coffee cup, a skyline. Never enough to reveal the truth. Some wounds didn't need reopening. Then, one evening at a networking event, I met Lucas Bennett. He wasn't flashy or arrogant, just warm, steady, and disarmingly sincere. He treated me like a partner, not a project. With him, I didn't have to prove my worth. He saw it. When he proposed 3 years later, I finally let myself believe I'd healed. We built a life grounded in respect, laughter, and quiet victories. And still, sometimes at night, I'd touch the locket and whisper, I did it. Not for revenge, not to prove them wrong, but because I finally believed I was enough, all on my own. The gala sparkled like something out of a movie, chandeliers spilling light over crystal glasses, laughter echoing off marble floors. Lucas stood beside me, his hand resting gently on my back, grounding me in the swirl of attention. I'd been to hundreds of events before, but this one was different. Tonight, my company, Envera Consulting, was being honored for transformative innovation in business leadership. But fate had other plans for my spotlight. I caught sight of them again, my mother, Vanessa, and Ethan, standing near the champagne tower like a perfect picture of upper-class charm. My mother was dressed in her usual armor, diamonds, posture, and that practiced smile she wore for people she wanted to impress. Vanessa looked elegant, polished, maybe even happy. And Ethan, older, heavier, but still carrying the same air of quiet confidence. Only now, it looked cracked. They didn't notice me at first, until the announcer called my name. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our keynote honoree, Ms. Emma Carter, CEO and founder of Envera Consulting. The sound of applause filled the room. I stepped onto the stage, the spotlights bathing me in gold. My heart hammered, but my voice was steady when I began to speak about resilience, about finding strength when life closes doors, about believing in yourself when no one else does. I didn't mention names, but I didn't have to. When the speech ended, I glanced toward their table. My mother's face was pale, her smile frozen. Vanessa's lips trembled slightly. And Ethan, he looked like he'd seen a ghost from a life he thought was gone forever. Afterward, as guests mingled, Lucas leaned in. You okay? Better than okay, I said softly, smiling up at him. Still, part of me needed to face them. Not out of revenge, out of closure. So I walked toward them, each step calm, deliberate. My mother's eyes darted nervously, Vanessa clutched her glass, and Ethan straightened as if bracing for impact. Emma, my mother began, voice too bright. It's been so long. We had no idea you were alive. I finished with a polite smile. Doing well? Her words faltered. Of course, sweetheart, It's fine, I said, cutting her off gently. I didn't expect you here. I'm just surprised to see you together. Vanessa's voice was small. We didn't know you'd be here. Neither did I replied, my tone light, almost amused. But life has a funny way of bringing people back together, doesn't it? Ethan cleared his throat. You've done well for yourself. I have, I said simply. Envera's been good to me. To us. I reached for Lucas's hand. This is my husband, Lucas Bennett. He extended a warm handshake, his calm confidence filling the awkward silence. It's a pleasure to meet you, he said with an easy smile that only made their discomfort worse. My mother's lips trembled. Emma, we're so proud of you. For a moment, I almost believed her. But the years of manipulation, betrayal, and gaslighting echoed in my mind. Pride wasn't what she felt, it was realization. The daughter she dismissed had built an empire without her. I appreciate that, I said finally. Really? I guess some lessons take time to teach themselves. Then, with a soft smile, I excused myself, leaving them in the glittering silence of everything they'd once told me I'd never have. As Lucas and I stepped back into the crowd, I felt lighter, like a chapter had closed without needing a single cruel word. I hadn't needed revenge, just truth. They found me later that night, just as the last of the guests began to leave. The music had softened to a slow piano tune, the scent of orchids and champagne lingering in the air. I was standing near the balcony, overlooking the city lights, when I heard my mother's voice behind me. Emma, please can we talk? I turned slowly. Vanessa stood beside her, looking smaller than I remembered. Ethan lingered a few steps behind them, guilt written all over his face. I nodded. Talk. My mother hesitated, wringing her hands, something I'd never seen her do. We didn't know, sweetheart. We thought you failed. I finished gently. You thought I'd disappear quietly, maybe come back someday needing help. But I didn't. Her lips parted, but no words came. Vanessa's eyes glistened. Emma, I never meant to hurt you. I was young, and Mom, she said you didn't really love him. She said you were focused on your career. I studied her face. The years had softened her, but there was still that flicker of envy, or maybe regret. You believed her, I said softly. That was your choice. Ethan stepped forward. Emma, if I could take it back. You can't, I interrupted. And I don't need you to. What's done is done. There was silence, thick, uncomfortable, but honest. Then I sighed, setting down my glass. Look, I'm not here to punish anyone. But if you're really here to make things right, then I need honesty, not performance. My mother blinked. What do you mean? I said slowly. You've spent your whole life controlling people, me, Vanessa, even Ethan. You chose manipulation over love. If you want any kind of relationship with me, that ends tonight. No more guilt, no more comparison, no more pretending you know what's best. She swallowed hard, tears threatening her mascara. I turned to Vanessa. And you stop living through whoever you're with. Find something that's yours, something no one can hand to you or take away. Your smartness. Use it. Her voice cracked. I don't know where to start. Then start by forgiving yourself, I said simply. And finally, I looked at Ethan. You already got what you wanted once, stability, approval, whatever it was. Now you get to live with the truth of what you lost.
Don't say you're sorry.
Just be better. He nodded, eyes lowered. For a long moment, no one spoke. The wind carried the faint hum of city traffic from below, and I realized I wasn't angry anymore. I was free. When my mother finally whispered, "We'll try," I believed her. Maybe for the first time. Good, I said, picking up my clutch. Then that's all I need. As I walked back toward Lucas, I felt the soft weight of the gold locket against my skin. My grandmother had been right all along. I finally understood what enough really meant. The city had gone quiet by the time we left the gala. Lucas slipped his jacket around my shoulders as we stepped into the cool November air. The night sky stretched endlessly above us, a velvet canvas dusted with stars. For the first time in years, I felt weightless. Everything okay? He asked softly. I smiled up at him. Yeah, better than okay. He squeezed my hand. They looked shocked. A small laugh escaped me. You could say that. I think for once, Mom didn't have a script ready. We walked in silence for a moment, the sound of our heels and footsteps echoing down the marble steps. Inside, the gala still sparkled behind us, but I was done performing. Tonight wasn't about proving them wrong. It was about reclaiming the parts of myself I'd left behind. When we reached the car, I paused, pulling the little gold locket from beneath my gown. The word inside, "Enough," gleamed faintly under the streetlight. I traced it with my thumb, remembering my grandmother's voice. You'll know what it means when it's time. Now, I knew. Enough didn't mean I'd stopped caring. It meant I'd stopped letting pain define me. It meant I could forgive without forgetting, love without losing myself, and walk away without looking back. In the weeks that followed, things shifted. My mother started therapy, something I'd never imagined she'd do. Vanessa began working with a nonprofit, helping young women find their own paths. Even Ethan reached out once, not to apologize, but to thank me for the words that made him finally face himself. And me? I kept building, kept loving, kept living. My company thrived, my marriage deepened, and that quiet strength I once prayed for became second nature. One evening, as I stood by my office window overlooking the city skyline, I smiled to myself. The girl who'd once left home with a broken heart had built her own world, one not of revenge, but of redemption. I clasped the locket shut and whispered, almost like a prayer, I am enough. Then I turned off the lights, ready to step into whatever came next. Because some stories don't end with revenge or regret. They end with peace, and a woman finally standing in her own light. Bottom of form,